It rises out of the desert like sapphire on sapphire, a sparkling paradise that bridges a cool blue lagoon at the edge of sand and sea. The brainchild of Saudi Arabian ambition, the latest addition to the incredibly ambitious project known as Neom, the creation is a luxury resort, a mainstay for the ultra-rich and for those that come to admire the formidable desert sands. But right now, that luxury resort isn't a resort at all. It's an idea, a collection of aspirations sketched onto paper and just at the early phases of a process that will attempt to bridge it into reality. So on today's episode of Megaprojects, we'll be exploring this strange futuristic hotel over the lagoon, how it'll work, what it's meant to be, and who it's meant to welcome to this corner of the world. And we'll also explore the broader questions behind Saudi Arabia's newest concept, why it was commissioned, what grand ambition it's meant to serve, and whether this latest dream of Saudi princes in Riyadh could actually make the jump to reality. The concept was unveiled to the world in March of 2024 in the latest in a long series of glossy press releases by way of the grand megaproject known as Neom. We've covered it before. It's not going particularly well. Accompanied by glimmering concept art and a few key details designed to fuel the imagination of onlookers, the minds behind Neom outlined the bare bones of their vision. Situated on the Gulf of Aqaba, a long stretch of water that divides Egypt and Saudi Arabia at the northernmost stretch of the Red Sea, Neom's leaders intended to build a hotel. But as Neom's concept art made abundantly clear, this hotel wasn't just a B-list Marriott offshoot. The hotel itself would be built as a bridge, stretching across the mouth of a wide lagoon and granting incredible views and atmosphere to those who book a stay. It was dubbed Treyam. The designs were provided courtesy of a US architectural studio, Mark Foster Gage Architects, founded by a designer and theoretician bearing the same name. Based in New York City, the firm is known for its intense focus on supreme design aesthetics, while the man at its head was once lauded by the world's oldest surviving magazine, The Spectator, as, quote, the most decoratively radical architect at work today. The firm is responsible for Times Square's inaugural Valentine's Day Heart built in 2009 and a number of retail stores serving the fashion designer Nicola Formichetti all over the world. Gage's most famous design, the so-called Khaleesi Tower, drew global attention for its ornate designs, intended to soar for over 1,500 feet into New York City's Billionaire Row. The firm's design work has been featured in some of the world's most esteemed museums and described at length in the vast majority of major architectural publications, as well as global print and TV news outlets. Mark Foster Gage himself, however, has also earned another moniker given to him by Surface magazine, quote, the most prolific architect of buildings that don't exist. But Gage's nearly impossible to realize designs are just one half of the equation behind Treyam, and on the other side is a gargantuan initiative that's committed to bringing borderline impossible designs into reality, and that of course is Neom. Long-time viewers here on Megaprojects are no doubt already familiar with Neom, and would hazard a guess that some first-time viewers might be too. You're watching a channel about megaprojects after all. The project is designed to be grandiose, it's meant to capture the imagination, but in the event that you may have missed it, here are the basics. Neom is a gargantuan infrastructure megaproject, more of a giga-project really, proposed by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia a few years ago. It's got a budget that Saudi Arabia reports to be around $1.5 trillion, with a T, American dollars, and in a practical sense is a grand push to reorient Saudi Arabia's economy away from its dependence on oil into tourism, innovation, finance, logistics, and all sorts of other industries that will still exist even after the last drop of oil has been sucked from the earth. The centerpiece of the Neom project is known as the Line, a glass-walled, self-contained, high-rising futuristic city that Saudi Arabia has long claimed will stretch for 105 miles and host 1.5 million people by the year 2030. Among the high ambitions Saudi Arabia has revealed for the Line at one point or another
are a grand artificial intelligence meant to monitor and improve the city each day, an architecture that would place all of its residents' daily needs within a 5-minute walk of their door, and some considerably more out-of-pocket elements like flying taxis, cage-fighting robot entertainment, and a giant artificial moon, because why not?
Alongside the Line, Saudi Arabia has promised all manner of spectacular-looking playgrounds for the rich and famous, cutting-edge industrial hubs, revolutionary renewable energy and desalinization features, and a whole lot more, but unfortunately for Saudi Arabia, the project has also fallen under harsh criticism for its general lack of feasibility, the many human rights violations of the nation building it, and recent reports that its 105-mile-long megacity due for 2030, tick-tock, is actually only going to be 1.5 miles by that time. The situation's not great. Saudi Arabia really doesn't like people saying the situation's not great, and the future of the entire project is in doubt. But when it comes to the vision for Treyam, Neom's ambitions have stayed the same. After all, according to the people at the head of the grand project, this is a place where impossible things will be made possible, so the high ambition and spectacular design of an architect like Mr. Gage should fit right in. Or maybe it will just join his collection of other that never got finished. When it comes to the design of Treyam itself, there are a lot of things that stand out. So let's run through them, shall we? The main feature of Treyam Hotel is its grand bridge, expected to measure nearly 0.5 kilometer. It's nearly 1,500 feet from end to end. The bridge will sit at 118 feet, or 36 meters, above the surface of the water below, with Neom's promotional materials promising a clear view of vibrant coral reefs under the surface. Along the top of the entire bridge, as shown in Treyam's concept art, will stretch a long, wide infinity pool. Along its edges, Treyam promises lush greenery, areas to relax, and long walkways for those not inclined to swim. Inside, Treyam is said to consist of 250 hotel rooms with a special touch added to each, a partially transparent, glass-bottom floor in each room that will allow guests to gaze down to the lagoon below. As Mark Foster Gage Architects explained it, Treyam is meant for, quote, offering a new perspective on how architecture engages with nature. Along with the floors, ceilings in each of the rooms will be glass, and great glass windows will allow occupants to gaze out upon the landscape. At each of its terminus points on shore, towering pinnacles will crest into the skies as a built-out structure nearer to the ground will likely offer all of the amenities that the world's luxury travelers would expect. Treyam's concept art even depicts cascading waterfalls descending the chopped-up multi-layered rooftops of the outlying portions of the building on land, sparkling against the harsh desert sun. Of course, as any real estate agent worth their license will attest, location is everything, and in Treyam's case, the location is pretty damn good. Situated atop the narrow point of entry for the lagoon it bridges, Treyam's guests, with an inland view, will be able to gaze down upon the lagoon, a stretch of pristine red-brown desert and a range of rocky highlands that contrast sharply with the clear blue of the sky. Guests with a seaward view will stare out to the tranquil waters of the Gulf of Aqaba and gaze upon the Egyptian coastline on the other side of its 15-mile, 24-kilometer expanse. And all the guests, no matter where they're facing, will have direct access to what's above and below. As Gage described it, quote, you're literally hovering over an entire underwater ecosystem and looking out over the vastness and beauty of the natural world. The rooms also have partially glass ceilings, which means you also have a direct connection to some of the most incredible views of the stars that I've seen in my entire life. Among the outdoor amenities promised for Treyam, the scuba diving and windsurfing, each taking full advantage of the natural landscape that this particular location provides. Situated about 10 kilometers, or 6 miles from the line, Treyam will be easily accessible from what Saudi Arabia promises will be a booming metropolis, but it'll still sit far enough away that its guests can live unbothered by the rush and noise of city life. Treyam will operate courtesy of the Equinox Hotels company, known for its so-called urban oasis in the Hudson Yards neighborhood of New York City. According to Equinox, Treyam has even more to offer than what was announced at its big reveal. Quoting from Travel Weekly here, Equinox has promised a range of high-class amenities. Quote, world-class culinary concepts, a clubhouse spa, longevity and technology treatment supporting health and performance, and a signature Equinox fitness club. The ultimate goal, just like everything else in Neom, is to build something, quote, unlike anything else on Earth. Meanwhile, Neom's hotel division has promised a growing number of luxury resorts, from a so-called secret garden, resort and spa, also designed by Gage, to an upside-down ultra-luxury skyscraper with some truly unhinged concept art, and a handful of other destinations with weird and wonderful names: Aquellum, Zainor, Jidori, Sirana, Epicon, and many, many more. Now, it's at this time that we imagine that you might be thinking about our previous episodes on Neom and starting to get a little itch that you can't scratch. Why, as the burning question probably goes, are we taking this crazy idea seriously? Could it really work? Isn't this just a pipe dream? Isn't the entire thing about Neom that the whole Gigaproject is a pipe dream? And to answer that, we've actually got to answer two questions. Is Treyam even feasible? And if it is, then will it ever actually exist? To answer the first question, we've got to strip away all the glitzy concept art and just look at the physics of the thing. Can this gigantic floating bridge building hanging a full half-kilometer out in the open air actually stay up without collapsing? Now, we do have to emphasize, we here at Megaprojects are neither particularly expert physicists nor trained architects, and to sit down and actually do the calculations on this behemoth is a bit beyond us. We trust there's at least one mathematical beast in the comments below willing to take on the challenge and show their work. But even just the basics of the Treyam design provide some reason to be skeptical. Any load suspended between two anchor points can only be so heavy. Just imagine, say, a long, thin plank of wood perched on a concrete brick at one end and a concrete brick on the other. Place something small in the middle of the plank, let's say your morning coffee, and that plank will probably hold. Stand on it, however, and unless you're Lilliputian in size, that plank is gonna snap. Make the plank of wood longer, move those concrete blocks out further and further from one another, but don't make the plank itself any thicker or stronger, and it'll only sag down easier from your weight placed on the center. And in the case of Treyam, there is a whole lot of weight that will need to be supported between the 2 points, half a kilometer apart. The bridge element of the hotel will need to hold the building materials, all the concrete and glass and steel. It'll have to hold the tremendous weight of the water in its infinity pool. It'll have to hold all the furnishings, the interior elements, and anything else that its designers choose to cram in there, not to mention all of the people. And on that 450-meter long expanse, Treyam's current concept art shows nothing to help distribute the weight of the structure more evenly, rather than pushing it toward a sagging center that bears all of the weight of the hotel bridge. There's no truss or suspension elements like a long bridge might have in reality, and the size of the building that must be suspended between its two anchor points is so far beyond anything built in any structure on Earth. Of course, Treyam's designers are under no obligation to show all the bells and whistles in an initial piece of concept art, and we don't know whether they've got some sort of plan to use some very light, very strong material to gird the structure against collapse. But on the technical feasibility angle, at least for now, we rate Treyam as implausible at best. But if we assume it is possible to build it in its current form, we come to the second question. Will that ever actually happen? Immediately, the answer tends towards no, and for good reason. After all, if international reports on the line are to be believed, then Neom's flagship effort is catastrophically behind on its design and construction goals, to the point that just 1% of its projected length will be finished by 2030 under even the best of circumstances. So if the line is flagging so far behind, then there should be no hope of Treyam ever being realized, right? Well, probably that's the likeliest option at this stage, but it's also worth paying at least some attention to the alternative, and to understand that alternative, we've got to come back to the reason that Neom is being built in the first place. The entire goal of this grand project is to shift the Saudi economy, by force if necessary, away from the short-term viable fossil fuel industry and toward economic sectors that can sustain the nation indefinitely. The entire reason that a project like Neom is possible is because Saudi Arabia has, quite frankly, stupid amounts of money to throw away. And while it's true that those sums don't appear to be enough to cover the line as initially imagined, there's another side to that coin. Discontinue the line, freeze its development in place, or adjust to a much slower development timeline to realize a toned-down version of the project, and all of a sudden, there's a whole lot of money back in circulation. As global sources have advocated skepticism around Neom's real limitations, Saudi Arabia has responded with a combination of denials and distractions, and those distractions have consisted of a whole lot of concepts for a whole lot of smaller but still spectacular infrastructure projects. In fact, Treyam is one of them. There are a couple of reasons why Neom's planners might have decided to respond that way, and certainly one possibility is that they'd simply like to take the heat off a failing gigaproject by capturing people's imagination for as long as they can. But another possibility is that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia may have decided to adjust its long-term thinking, leaving behind near impossible goals like building the line in order to focus on smaller scale projects like Treyam that might still be achievable if they throw inordinate amounts of oil money at the ideas. Whether or not Treyam specifically holds up in such an environment, that's another question. The precarious structure of Treyam, as it's currently drawn up, doesn't exactly inspire confidence. At this early stage, designed by an architect who's known for designing things that never get built, it's easy enough to abandon. Perhaps some heavily revised floating bridge hotel does get built in a way that's a bit more structurally sound. Perhaps the vision of a spectacular bridge hotel fades away, but Equinox builds a pretty kick-ass traditional hotel beside the same lagoon, or perhaps the whole thing gets slashed or quietly abandoned in hopes that the world won't ever notice. And in a way, that's the beauty of the entire Neom project as it currently exists. We can be pretty sure that the real thing, whatever it becomes, probably won't look like the concept art, but where it goes, whether it collapses or how it evolves and perseveres, is a question that may take a generation to finally answer.